Welcome to the GAMERamble video review for Concrete Jungle, narrated by me, Dark Cloud. As always, the full text version of this review can be found on the GAMERamble website, linked below. The TLDR for Concrete Jungle is that it offers an interesting mix of genres that all combine to provide a compelling gameplay experience. It's also much more challenging than you would think. In the versus mode, city planning turns into a vicious game of sabotage and dirty tricks, while the solo mode requires players to think ahead in order to survive. Multiplayer is unfortunately local only, but even so, this game will keep players busy for ages. Gameplay receives a 9 out of 10. The game is very addictive and genuinely a joy to play, despite sometimes being as hard as nails. Graphics receives a 9 out of 10. When zoomed in, the visuals look fuzzy, but overall the amount of detail and variety is top notch. Sound receives a 9 out of 10. Game features great tunes and some surprisingly good voice acting too. The overall score for Concrete Jungle is 9 out of 10. And now for the full review. City planning games are undeniably addictive if done right, but the steep learning curves and abundance of micromanagement in some games tend to deter many players. However, Concrete Jungle takes a whole new approach to the genre by making everything turn-based and incorporating puzzle elements. You still have to grow your city while balancing the placement of residential, commercial and industrial buildings, but in a neat twist, you have to use a deck of cards to do so. Instead of presenting you with a large tract of empty land, Concrete Jungle focuses on a 6x7 grid. Your aim is to clear the rows by building up the residential point value. For example, if a row requires 4 points to clear, then 2 houses worth 2 points each or 4 houses with a single point each will do the trick. However, most buildings affect their surroundings, so putting a factory next to a house can drop the total value of the row instead of increasing it. Every structure in the game only takes up a single spot on the grid, but you still have limited space to build. Some blocks also features pre-existing structures, making your job even more difficult. Mastering the basics of Concrete Jungle is straightforward enough, but the game is more complex than it first appears. It's like the developers threw SimCity, Tetris, Magic the Gathering and Chess in a blender and then added another dose of addictiveness to the mix just for good measure. Playing the campaign mode, which features a tutorial and plenty of humor, is a must to get the hang of the game. Basically, you construct a deck of cards which determines which buildings you'll have access to during levels. With more than 200 cards, there's plenty of room for strategy, but you don't have access to everything right off the bat. Instead, you'll unlock cards as you level up your character, and as an added bonus, you'll also gain access to new characters along the way. That is, if you can beat them, of course. Don't think it's going to be a walk in the park though, as the AI in this game is quite formidable. Some levels are played solo, and your only goal is to reach the point value for each row. Only the first row on the grid disappears when its point value is reached, so it should always be your top priority when playing solo. The row can be forcibly cleared by sacrificing your character's health, but this can cost you the level if done too much and should only be used as a last resort. When playing against the AI, it's not such a big deal, as the row will automatically disappear if there are no more empty spots to build on it. This means that in versus matches, the emphasis shifts from just reaching the point value to gaining a higher point value than your opponent. Doing so rewards you with your own points and whatever points your opponent's at in the row. Although you start out with 5 cards in your hand during each round, only the top 2 can be used. During versus mode, you have to play 3 cards per turn, which means you have to make each one count. The grid is divided into color-coded zones, so you can only place cards in your own zone or neutral ones. To keep things fair, the first row is always neutral, even if it belonged to you or your opponent before it reached the front. Playing against an opponent, be it human or AI, also requires more strategy, as you must decide whether you will focus on building up your own zones or disrupt your opponents. There's not enough space in this review to describe all the devious tactics that can be employed to mess with your opponents, making things even more addictive. While each of the 8 playable characters in the game use the same cards, they all have their own unique skill trees. These skills and additional cards for your deck are unlocked during levels by placing cards and earning economic points. It's a bit of a double-edged sword though, as the cards that generate more economic points also come at a higher cost. As the cost adds up, so does the point value needed to clear each row, which obviously makes things more challenging on the solo levels. It all sounds very complicated, but the game is addictive enough that you'll want to get back in and try a new strategy even after losing repeatedly. In addition to the campaign mode, you can also set up custom competitive or co-op matches against up to 4 opponents, human or AI. Unfortunately, the multiplayer is local only and not online, but it offers tremendous fun if you can round up enough friends. Quick solo matches enable you to practice your skills, and you can also play in classic mode, which is like solo but without the deck building, which means you have to rely on luck instead. Concrete Jungle is a good looking game with some nicely detailed isometric graphics. There's plenty of variety when it comes to all the different structures, and the game even features different weather effects, as well as neat touches like the little cars zipping about in the streets. You can even zoom in for a better look at the buildings, but things get a little fuzzy up close. Concrete Jungle also features a great soundtrack, with the likes of D.P. Kaufman, Xerxes and Mokov providing the tunes. Another unexpected highlight is the fully voiced characters in the campaign mode. The actors did a great job bringing the rather silly characters to life, making playing through the campaign more enjoyable. The controls are intuitive for the most part, and the interface is very straightforward, but it took us a while to discover that the dialogue can be skipped by holding down the arrow button for a second. Note, this has been made more evident after the 1.04 update. In addition to Steam achievements, Concrete Jungle also features trading cards and leaderboards. There's no denying that Concrete Jungle is a very addictive game, and beneath its cute exterior lies plenty of strategic depth. Some of the opponents in the campaign mode, especially on the extreme difficulty levels, wiped the floor with us, but there was always one more strategy to try, and this kept us going back for more. Overall, there's very little that can be faulted about Concrete Jungle, and it's a must-have title for anyone with even a passing interest in the genre. Thanks for joining me for this Concrete Jungle PC review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.